In the abandoned courtyard, just after giving birth to a child, they were stabbed with swords and asked to go to the underworld with their mother and son. Then consider if you have this ability. The head of the 21st century Mohist family, who possesses a powerful medical system, has fallen to become the consort of a disabled warrior prince. I haven't even been in love before, but now I have a little turtle egg son. Leng Xiao suddenly felt that life was full of new challenges, full of chaos in the court, the ambition of the prime minister's father, the cold suspicion of the winged king, and the jealousy and murder of the Qing princess. Let's all take it easy. She has always been stronger when faced with strength. Chapter 1. Crossing Childbirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Great Wei Dynasty. In the abandoned courtyard of Yiwang Mansion, rainstorm washed the old gate of the abandoned courtyard out of color. Leng Xiao was lying on the wet bed with severe pain in her abdomen. She had been in pain all day and night, and could no longer support her. Prince! She shouted angrily, feeling that her life had come to an end, but she had never seen this child before. Princess, try harder, you're about to give birth. The nanny who served her cried and shouted, her throat already hoarse. Leng Xiao grabbed the hand of the nanny with all his might, her stunning face extremely pale. Tell the prince, I really didn't plan to harm Princess Qing, nor did I have any affair with the guards. I really didn't. The mother cried and said, Madam, the prince will believe you. You must persist. Leng Xiao exerted all her strength into her abdomen, and suddenly felt a release. Then darkness swept over her, and she heard a baby cry. She smiled slowly and released her tightly clenched hands. Empress, it's the young prince. You helped the prince give birth to his eldest son. The surprised voice immediately turned into an exclamation of surprise, Empress, Empress. The dilapidated door was quickly pushed open, and a woman dressed in luxurious clothes came in with several maids and maids. Her face was cold and her demeanor was extraordinary. Upon entering, she glanced at Leng Xiao, who was already unconscious on the bed. Before the disgust and pleasure in her eyes could subside, she coldly said, Take the child away. The mother quickly cut the umbilical cord, protected the child, knelt on the ground, and cried, Princess Qing, you can't take the crown prince away. Please find a doctor, the queen is almost done. The people next to Princess Qing rushed up and snatched the child, holding it in front of her. Princess, they said. Princess Qing looked at the child, whose eyebrows and eyes looked like Yi's. Suddenly, hatred surged in her eyes. She took out a handkerchief, covered the baby's mouth and nose, and coldly said, Leng Xiao had an affair with the palace guards, giving birth to a wicked seed. This palace has confirmed that he is truly not the flesh and blood of the king of Yi. The mother was shocked and suddenly wanted to come forward to snatch the child, but was caught by the woman who came in with her. She slapped her hard twice and said, You stubborn slave, instigating the queen to collude with the palace guards. The crime is heinous, and it should be considered a death penalty. A few slaps fell, causing the grandmother to bleed and cry uncontrollably. The baby's mouth and nose were covered and gradually stopped moving. Princess Qing moved her hand, discarded her handkerchief on the ground, and looked at the maidservants beside her. Do you know how to report when you see the prince? The mother-in-law respectfully said, As for the princess, the child born to the Leng family is about 7 or 8 points similar to the guard Fang. Princess Qing smiled slightly, shook the emerald on her head, and Jean Gui's footsteps moved forward. She stood by the bed, watching Leng Xiao, as if her great hatred had just dissipated, and finally died. If it weren't for Ai's insistence on waiting for her child to be born and verifying her true identity, she would have wanted to kill Leng Xiao long ago. How could she have given birth to a child alive? Pour poisoned wine, wrap the body in a straw mat, and throw it on the mass grave. Princess Qing slowly ordered. Yes. The woman next to her approached and prepared poisoned wine. She pinched Leng Xiao's mouth with 2 fingers and wanted to drink the poisoned wine. Cold Xiao, who had fallen into a coma, suddenly opened her dark and cold eyes and stared at the woman's fierce face. She was shocked for a moment, and then memories flooded in. Her eyes were filled with anger, and she opened the poisoned wine with one hand. She grabbed the woman's collar and pulled her down, took the hairpin from her head, and then fiercely stabbed her in the eyes. The scream came, and blood flowed like a gush. Princess Qing's face suddenly changed and she said, "Cold Xiao, your crime is extremely heinous. Why don't you die quickly?" Leng Xiao grabbed the bedding and sat up, kicking away the screamed old woman lying beside her. She felt the pain all over her body, and took a deep breath. This broken body had just given birth, and even time travel was worse than others, damn it. Fortunately, the spiritual power of the Mohist family still existed, and they immediately activated the spiritual power to heal the injury, stop the pain, and stood barefoot on the ground. Princess Qing can't believe it. Is this Leng Xiao, whom she has been bullying for 10 months and dare not resist? I've been pretending to be gentle all along. Kill her. Princess Qing's esteemed face burst into rage and she ordered fiercely. Chapter 2. Fold her hand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, Leng Xiao quickly stepped forward and grabbed Princess Qing's hair with one hand, pulling her to the front with a cold tone. You perverted woman, when the Wing King went on an expedition, wrongly accused me of poisoning you, falsely accused me of having an affair with the guards, and caused me to live a life worse than death in this abandoned courtyard. You can kill me. Now I can't die, it's your turn to live a life worse than death. You're bold. Princess Qing has been treated like this before, especially with the despicable woman Leng Xiao. She was so angry that she disregarded her manners that she wanted to raise her hand and slap her face. Leng Xiao pinched her wrist and forcefully broke it, hearing the sound of a broken bone. Princess Qing let out a scream, and Cold Xiao pushed her to the ground. He brushed his sleeves and said coldly, "Go back and report it. I want to kill you." It's best for him to come to this abandoned courtyard and see if this child is from the guards or his. The mother-in-law and maid quickly helped Princess Qing up and pressed her messy bun. The mother-in-law scolded angrily, "Princess, don't go too far. The prince has long wanted to kill you, but the princess protected you and gave birth to a child." Leng Xiao said coldly, "Shut up. This way, you can coax the child. I don't believe a word, she wants me to die 100 times in agony. Get lost." Princess Qing's hand was broken, and tears welled up in pain. She suppressed the pain and angrily said, Okay, I see when your mouth is so hard. Someone will come and take away the body of that wild seed. Zhu Mama had already reacted and immediately picked up the baby, but the baby was already silent. Zhu Mama burst into tears. Leng Xiao glanced at the baby, whose face was purple-blue, but there was a slight fluctuation in her chest. She had not yet stopped breathing. She hugged him and injected spiritual power into his hand vein. The spiritual power then ran through the baby's body. After a while, she opened her eyes and cried loudly. Princess Qing was shocked when she saw that her child had not died. Ignoring her demeanor, she shouted frantically, "Bring that wild seed over and kill him." Cold Xiao saw that she insisted on killing a newborn baby, with a malicious heart and a burning anger. He hugged the baby and kicked her in the stomach. This kick was extremely hateful, causing Princess Qing to fly out of the threshold and pass out. The mother-in-law and maidservants hurriedly went to help her, only to see blood flowing from her head. They quickly took her and the mother-in-law away. Zhu Mama was stunned. The princess seemed to have changed her personality, how could she be so powerful? What are you still doing in a daze? Where's the hot water? Cold Xiao gave Zhu Mama a faint glance and said. Zhu Mama regained her senses and quickly went to fetch hot water to help the baby wash away the blood stains on her body and face, and then wrapped her umbilical cord. Leng Xiao changed into a new outfit and threw out those stained with blood. The hatred and resentment of the original owner seemed to remain in the chest for a long time. 10 months ago, the daughter of the Prime Minister, Leng Xiao, married the third son of the current emperor, Nangong. On the second day of their marriage, they received an attack from Tang Baorong, and Nangong ordered troops to go on an expedition. 3 months after Nangong expedition, Leng Xiao realized that he was pregnant. Princess Qing temporarily lived in the palace to manage the internal affairs of the palace. When she learned that she was pregnant, she accused her of having an affair with the guards, and the guards admitted it. Leng Xiao cried out for justice. That night, Princess Qing was poisoned. After rescuing her, it was found that Leng Xiao had poisoned her. She was supposed to kill Leng Xiao on the spot, but the Prime Minister tried his best to protect her. 3 months ago, when Nangong returned triumphantly, she injured her legs and was still under treatment. She did not thoroughly investigate the matter, but only said to wait until the child was born and see what happened. Leng Xiao was thrown into the abandoned courtyard and only sent Zhu Mama to serve her. Today, there are only children left, and it has been more than 10 months since the night of marriage. That is to say, the child will be born after the due date. Chapter 3. Becoming a Mother for Nothing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Leng Xiao sat cross-legged, feeling hatred lingering around. The original owner was wronged, and she had no affair with the guards, so this child belongs to the Wing King. However, this child was born after the due date, not to mention that the King of Wings does not believe it, but even those outside may not believe it. Leng Xiao glanced at the child and a handsome and domineering face appeared in his mind, somewhat blurry. It was a memory of the original owner, but it could be distinguished that the child was similar to the Wing King. That's also why Princess Qing had to kill this child. Leng Xiao brought the baby over, and the child stopped crying and fell asleep. He was fat and sturdy, and a child born over 10 months old weighed at least 8 pounds. No wonder the original owner gave birth to him and saved his life. This child will be her child in the future. Leng Xiao has very complicated emotions in her heart. She is the last generation successor of the Mohist family. She has the medical system of the Mohist family. She was coveted. She hid in Tibet, but was finally found. She would rather be broken than destroyed. She jumped into the sea to protect the medical system, but unexpectedly crossed this unknown time and space. Moreover, as soon as she wears it, she becomes a mother. She dares not even think about making boyfriends, getting married, having children, or having a previous life. She activated her spiritual power to activate the medical system and check if there was any damage. Fortunately, there was no damage. The medical library, instrument library, and operating room were all available. She breathed a slight sigh of relief, feeling much safer in this time and space than in the 25th century. Zhu Mama whispered, "The crown prince must be hungry, the wet nurse hasn't been found yet." In this era, the housewives of aristocratic families do not personally breastfeed, they all have nannies. Cold Xiao didn't feel any breast milk rising, the original owner's health was very poor. Go fetch some hot water and let it dry here. Yes, Zhu Mama walked to the door and sighed, "You hit Princess Qing. She will definitely not let you go. What should I do? Why does Princess Qing always target you?" Leng Xiao sneered, why did Princess Qing not target her? By linking the experiences of the original owner with their memories, one can understand the reasons behind them. Princess Qing likes her younger brother. Iwang Nangong is not her biological younger brother. When the emperor was still a prince, he faced pressure and married a beautiful woman who was widowed and had a daughter as his concubine. The concubine was now the Empress Huigui, and Princess Qing was Huigui's daughter. But the emperor truly doted on this concubine Hui, and after ascending to the throne, he bestowed upon this stepdaughter the title of princess. Princess Qing was born on the same year, month, and day as Nangong, but she was 2 hours older than Nangong. When she entered the mansion, she was 8 years old and suddenly became a noble and obedient person. She was very obedient and naturally loved by her stepfather. But perhaps no one knows about her hidden thoughts, not even Nangong. After taking out the milk powder from the system and feeding the baby, she ignored Zhu Mama's surprised gaze and said, "Help me dress up. I need to go find Nangong." Zhu Mama worried and said, "But I heard that since the prince injured his leg, his temperament has become unpredictable and his temper has become very bad. You have only injured Princess Qing again. Are you afraid that he will order to deal with you? Let's wait for a while. The old servant still has some money. Tomorrow, I will hire a wet nurse and take care of it myself." Leng Xiao said, "He has disabled legs, maybe he won't be able to have another child in his lifetime. Then this child is his only bloodline. As a father, don't take responsibility. I'll hide and raise him myself. Am I stupid? This is this truth. Don't be verbose, I don't know how to handle these hair." Leng Xiao sat down and ordered, but his tone became much gentler. "You just gave birth, how can you go everywhere?" "Mammy." Cold Xiao frowned. Zhu Mama had to shut up and come over to help her dress up. A blush of blush masked the pale aura, with rosy lips, distant eyebrows, starry eyes, and a graceful nose. The original owner's appearance was very beautiful, but lacking a bit of dominance. There is a 7 or 8 point similarity to her original appearance, but the difference is that she lacks that arrogant and domineering aura. How beautiful the princess is, Zhu Mama praised. Chapter 4. Finding the Wing King. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Leng Xiao didn't speak and went out holding the baby. Zhu Mama wanted to follow, but Leng Xiao didn't allow her to follow and let her go back to rest. These days, Zhu Mama has been working very hard. Based on the memory of the original owner, she arrived at the Jiuyue residence of the southern palace of the King of Wings, where Etienne resided. Someone was coming and going at the door, and upon hearing the voice of Princess Qing, she was unexpectedly sent back to the moon-slaying residence. I didn't expect that she would hurt me. I took a look at the child. He looks exactly like Fong Imo. He is a wild species. You'd better give orders to deal with him quickly to avoid being seen and losing your reputation. Lord Wei. A low and lazy voice sounded, "Kill the Leng family, the body will be buried well." It is publicly claimed that the queen gave birth to a son half a month ago, and after blood tests, it is confirmed that it is the bloodline of the king. The rest of the people in the mansion will all shut up. Whoever says more, stick it. A stick killing, so light and floating, as if human life was like grass in his eyes. Princess Qing became anxious and said, That child cannot stay. He will become your laughing stock. It doesn't matter." The voice seemed even lazier, with a nonchalant coldness. "You can't trample on yourself like this, wronging yourself." Princess Qing's voice choked up. "What's wrong with being a useless person?" Leng Xiao held the child and strode in. When he arrived at the corridor, the guards quickly stopped him. Leng Xiao said coldly, "I want to see Nangong Etienne." Cold Xiao's cold voice came in, and Princess Qing was so anxious that she wanted to go down to the ground. "Stop her, kill her." Lord Wei, a vassal of the royal family, walked out and saw Leng Xiao holding the child. The child was in a swaddle and his face was not visible. He frowned and said, "The queen has just given birth, why did she come out to see the wind? Go back quickly." Leng Xiao slowly climbed the stone steps and said, "Go back and wait for death." Why did the princess say this? Lord Wei was taken aback. "I've heard you all. Nangong Etienne said he wants to go to his mother and have a child. It's not such a cheap deal. I lost half of my life helping him give birth, but he wants to kill me. I have to ask him, he has legs disabled, doesn't he even have a conscience?" Bold. Lord Wei suddenly changed his face and sternly rebuked, "You go back quickly, don't pretend to be crazy and foolish here. Leng Xiao took another step forward and said, I must see him today. He has a broken leg and can't walk, so I have to come find him. You. Lord Wei was furious when she heard her say 3 or 4 times about the prince's leg disability, and even reached out to grab her and drag her away. Let her in. A cold and bloodthirsty voice came from inside, as if carrying a murderous aura and rushing towards her. Lord Wei withdrew his hand and lowered his eyebrows. The princess is seeking death, he said. Cold Xiao ignored him and strode in with the baby in his arms. Stepping into the main hall, facing a pair of cold and sinister eyes. That was a face that almost held one's breath, handsome and wild, with a layer of murderous aura wrapped around his wheat-colored skin. His long hair was rolled up in half, and he hung down his shoulders in a usually aloof manner. The black silk dress was embroidered with a prince's standard 4-dragon bead pattern, and there was a wound on his ear that extended to his neck. The wound did not appear ferocious at all, but it inexplicably added a touch of yin and madness to him. How dare you come? Drive me out. Princess Qing half lay on the bed of the noble consort, her folded handbag tied up, and said urgently. Cold Xiao gave her a cold glance and said, Bitch, shut up. Do you dare to call me a slut? You're not going to die. Princess Qing was furious. Leng Xiao ignored her and walked up to Nangong, ignoring the cruel coldness in his eyes. He only glanced at his legs, his shirt flowing smoothly, and even sitting there made people feel that his legs were slender. Chapter 5. He is your son. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Have you seen enough? Nangong voice sounded gloomy, not at all like the laziness he had just heard. Cold Xiao kicked a chair and sat in front of him, placing the baby in his hand on his lap. This is your son, whether you admit it or not, it's a fact, he said. Nangong eyes drooped for a moment, and he glanced at the child. The child was still asleep, breathing lightly, and his innocent face was as pure as an angel. Lord Wei, take the child away, said Nangong, giving Princess Qing a faint glance. Her gaze appeared particularly gentle, but Princess Qing suddenly turned pale. When Lord Wei was about to come and pick up the child, Leng Xiao snatched it back with one hand and looked at Nangong. Do you want to have a blood test? Do you want to check if this child is your bloodline again? Lord Wei had already seen the child's face and his eyes turned red in an instant. It was the child of the prince, very much like the prince. That's great, the prince stayed behind. Nangong curved his lips and formed a sneer at the corner of his mouth. Is it my king's child? I plan to stay and also plan to kill you. Leng Xiao stared into his eyes as if fearless. I die, the child dies, I live, the child can live. Is that right? Nangong laughed, but then threw out a dagger. I, the king, have taken care of you and killed this child. Lord Wei was worried and hurried to stop him. The child's facial features are exactly the same as yours. It's your child. Being a mother is cruel, and I don't care. Nangong smiled, but his eyes were unusually sharp as he stared at Leng Xiao. Come, show me how determined you are to live and die with this child. Leng Xiao picked up a dagger and looked at him. Do you insist on killing me? That's right, you must die, Nangong said coldly. Leng Xiao smiled and said, okay, the child I gave birth to through countless hardships cannot be given away for nothing. So let him accompany me to death. Fingertips stained with spiritual power pierced through the dagger, and it suddenly rose, fiercely thrusting into the baby's heart. No way. Lord Wei exclaimed in surprise, wanting to snatch the dagger, but Cold Xiao hit too hard and quickly. He could only press his palm against the baby's heart, and the dagger pierced Lord Wei's palm in an instant. Blood flowed like a torrent. Cold Xiao used spiritual power to pierce through the dagger. The dagger would not harm the child, but it would be different if it were Lord Wei's hand. But Lord Wei didn't know, and in a hurry, he could only reach out to block it. Lord Wei immediately took the dagger and, disregarding the bleeding in his palm, knelt down and said in a mournful voice, "Prince." Nangong Yitian also seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and with a smile on his lips, he looked at Leng Xiao and said, "Okay, tough enough. She is the daughter of the ruthless Prime Minister. I spare your life, you are alive, so that I can properly settle this useless account with the Prime Minister." His eyes were full of malice, yet he spoke such a calm and indifferent words. Prime Minister, the useless account, Leng Xiao seemed to suddenly understand something. There are still many conspiracies hidden here, including power conspiracies in the court. I.e., killing her is the only way to make Prime Minister Leng feel heartbroken, Princess Qing said fiercely. "Don't worry, I can play with them slowly," Nangong Yitian smiled coldly. "Lord Wei, please place the queen in the side garden of the moon-slaying residence so that she can fulfill her duties as a queen and serve me at any time." I.e. Princess Qing became anxious again. "Never mind. If she has malicious intentions, it may be detrimental to you." Chapter 6. A Room of Abnormalities. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Well, if something unexpected happens to me, wouldn't it be appropriate for the queen to be buried? Nangong Yitian leaned forward slightly, her handsome eyebrows in front of Leng Xiao, exuding a cold and bloodthirsty aura. "Are you right? My good queen? A room full of perverts." Cold Xiao stood up holding the child, turned around, and walked out, leaving behind this sentence. "Anyway, she doesn't want to live in the abandoned courtyard, which is dark and humid and not suitable for raising newborns. Moving is very easy. Originally, the original owner didn't have much, just a few clothes and jewelry. Just ask Zhu Mama to move over alone. The original owner had many dowries, but after Nangong Yitian went on an expedition, all of them were controlled by Princess Qing. The side garden is adjacent to the main courtyard, so she is separated by a wall from Nangong Yitian. Grandma Zhu couldn't believe that the queen could move to the Zhanyue residence. Does this mean that the queen has been favored again? Zhu Mama was a dowager, along with 2 maids, who were sent to the kitchen to do rough work. Grandma Zhu immediately suggested that the queen call them back and serve them by her side. Suddenly, some memories flooded into Leng Xiao's mind, which were the memories of the original owner. His eyes turned cold. Prime Minister Leng married the original owner to Nangong Yitian and asked her to come and do meticulous work. The 2 maids, named Wenju and Wenlan, were also trained, proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, painting, martial arts, horseback riding, and archery. I just didn't expect that as soon as I got married, the King of Wings went on a military expedition. During this period, Princess Qing, who was in charge of the royal palace, hated the original owner and assigned all her people to do rough work. These 2 maidservants were commanding and could only endure, doing rough work in the kitchen. However, during the days when the original owner was in the abandoned courtyard, they did not provide any assistance or help at all. They were afraid of being discovered by Princess Qing and then driven away. The 2 of them were brought back to the Zhanyue residence, overjoyed. After closing the door, they whispered to Leng Xiao, "Miss, you have come out of the abandoned courtyard and even moved into the Zhanyue residence. We can execute the orders of the Prime Minister now." Leng Xiao sat in the seat, looking at their joyful faces. "Forget about Xiangye, forget about your commands. From now on, I will be your only master, just follow my commands." The 2 exchanged a glance and were slightly stunned. Wenlan said quietly, "Miss, our sisters has only one master, that is, the Prime Minister. If the young lady wants to betray the Prime Minister must know." "That's right, Xiangye is our master. Miss, don't think that after moving into the moon-slaying house, you can get the favor of the Prince of Wings and become a legitimate Princess of Wings. For the sake of a man, betray Xiangye. Miss, do you know what will happen?" Leng Xiao smiled lightly and looked at her with lightning-like eyes. "What will happen? You say it." At least, Xiangye won't let you stay at the Wing Prince's mansion anymore, so naturally you won't be able to be a princess, said Wenlan coldly. I am very rare about the position of this princess, said Leng Xiao. Miss, you should listen to Xiangye's words and complete the tasks instructed by Xiangye. Leng Xiao looked at her and said, so, what's your father's order lately? Wenlan turned around and made sure the door was closed before taking a step forward. She took out a small paper bag from her sleeve and handed it to Leng Xiao, saying, this is the medicine given by the Prime Minister. Miss, you need to think of a way to put it in the food of the Wing King. Cold Xiao took it over and opened it. It was arsenic. Are you all disabled and still going to kill someone? It seems that the father of the original owner really has such ambition. On the other hand, thinking about it, even Nangong Yiqian was deposed, and Prime Minister Leng wanted to kill him so urgently. It shows how powerful Nangong Yiqian is. Chapter 7. Letting her poison and kill the Winged King. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miss will do it, won't she? Wenlan looked at her and asked. Zhu Mama looked over and looked worried. She didn't want the queen to do this. But when she remembered Xiangye's methods, she shuddered. Leng Xiao slowly wrapped the medicine and said with a smile on his face, of course. Wenlan and Wenju breathed a sigh of relief and said, Miss, you haven't forgotten the purpose of getting married. That would be the best. You guys go out first. Cold Xiao restrained the sharpness in his eyes and said. The two turned around and retreated. Zhu Mama whispered, Princess, do you really want to do this? Leng Xiao gave a faint smile and took out the arsenic and threw it into the spittoon. Upon seeing this, Grandma Zhu breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Leng Xiao knew that she hoped to become a true princess and break away from the past days, so she always referred to herself as the princess. And Wenlan and Wenju call her Mississippi. Next door in the main courtyard, Lord Wei entered the room, lifted the tent, and whispered, Cold Xiao took poison from the maid's hand and wants to poison you. A dim light hit Nangong Yiqian's cold face and said, Isn't this expected? Do you still expect her to be merciful to me? Lord Wei was very disappointed. I thought she would know her identity after giving birth to the crown prince, so maybe she could still save her life. Nangong Yiqian Feng narrowed her eyes and said playfully, I want to see how she poisoned me. Don't worry, my lord. I will order someone to keep an eye on her, said Lord Wei, taking out a pill from the drawer and bringing water over. Your lord, it's time to take the medicine. Nangong Yiqian turned his face and said calmly, I won't take it anymore. This medicine is of no use and won't relieve my pain. Prince, it's only been 10 days since I last ate it. The imperial physician said it will take another 3 months to have an effect, advised Lord Wei. Lost it, right? Nangong Yiqian slowly leaned against the noble concubine's bed, his eyes flickering. By the way, you go to Prince Shun's mansion and tell the fourth brother not to act rashly. He has always been reckless, and I'm afraid he will show off his bravery. Yes, I'll have someone go now, Lord Wei said, seeing that he didn't take his medicine, so he had to put it back. That's how the young prince let her take care of him. This woman is ruthless, afraid she will use it to blackmail you. She doesn't have this ability. Even if the child was his, he couldn't threaten him. On the night of his wedding, he was drunk and he still didn't know if he had a successful marriage, but he glanced at the baby and it did look exactly like him. But so what? If Prime Minister Leng thinks he can use this child to blackmail him, it's really a spring and autumn dream. Yes. Although Lord Wei was not at ease, he could only obey the prince's orders. Zhu Mama found a nanny for the young crown prince. The nanny's surname was Su. Just 1 month after giving birth, her child fell seriously ill and her family was poor. She didn't want to waste her milk, so she applied to be a nanny. Originally, such an unlucky person in the family couldn't be the wet nurse of the royal family, but Zhu Mama was in a hurry to find someone else and didn't care about anything else. Let her feed her first, and then find someone else. After Su Ninyang arrived, she knelt seriously in front of the baby and kowtowed, acknowledging her master. For a few days living under the moon / I would hear some sounds at night, like the low roar of a wounded beast, coming from the next room, and then there would be hurried footsteps, causing a flurry. The smell of blood seeped into the air. Leng Xiao opened his eyes and listened as the voice gradually sank. In fact, when I saw Nangong Yitian that day, I knew that he had been stabbed with several nails in his legs, which were embedded in his bone marrow. This would cause severe pain, and I don't know how he endured it. He is indeed a man with iron will, but unfortunately, he is too cruel to the original owner's heart. Chapter 8. A Wall's Separation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just a wall apart, but for a full month, Leng Xiao had never seen Nangong Yitian or Princess Qing. Zhu Mama inquired and said that her mother, Consort Hui, was sick and she went to the palace to take care of her illness. The baby is full moon, and there are no celebrations in the mansion. Only Lord Wei brought red eggs and hung a gold lock around the baby's neck. After a full moon and no name, Zhu Mama held the crown prince in her arms and felt uncomfortable for a while before hearing Leng Xiao say, "Bring the turtle egg over, I'll put some red on him." Turtle eggs. Grandma Zhu was stunned for a moment. His name. The son of Turtle King Badan is naturally Turtle Egg. She doesn't admit that this child is hers. Zhu Mama couldn't help but laugh and cry, how could the crown prince call this name? What crown prince? If he hasn't been sealed, he's not a crown prince. In the future, he'll be called Turtle Egg. Cold Xiao hugged the child, dipped his finger in a little red ink, and nodded at the center of Turtle Egg's eyebrows. The full moon Turtle Egg then danced and laughed at Cold Xiao. Leng Xiao also smiled, with a hint of inexplicable affection in her heart. This little turtle bastard is quite cute. She turned her eyes and restrained the scattered feeling. No, she didn't need the bonds of family. In the evening, Lord Wei came in and carried the turtle eggs out. Later, he carried them back and showed them to Nangong Yitian. Leng Xiao sneered, "It's really cold and thin. For a whole month, I just gave my own son such a glance." Around the hour of high, Princess Qing returned, and the voice came from the main hall. Ai called out with an indescribable sweetness and joy. Leng Xiao was too lazy to listen to the nauseating sound and closed the door to sleep. Su Ninyang and Zhu Mama accompanied little Turtle Egg to sleep in the small room on the left, which was connected to Leng Xiao's room but separated by a curtain. Leng Xiao lay in bed, not asleep. It had been a month since she crossed over, and she had not yet gotten used to the life here. It was dull and boring, and she didn't know how to live it in the future. Not wanting to get involved in power struggles means leaving here. However, it's not easy to leave. She doesn't have survival skills, and the medical clinic here doesn't accept female doctors. Even if she has medical skills to bring her back to life, it's useless. She had to continue to endure here. Pa! Suddenly, a loud noise came from the next door, as if something had been pushed down. Then, Princess Qing cried and shouted, don't do this. "Get lost," was the impatient voice with a frenzy, still like an injured beast, and the voice could be heard to be accompanied by intense pain. Lord, put down your sword quickly." "Absolutely not at all." Lord Wei began to cry. "Get lost, everyone get lost to me." Nangong Yitian shouted angrily, as if he couldn't bear the sound of tables and chairs flipping over. Cold Xiao pulled the blanket over her head, covered her ears, and made a big noise. You can't do this. If you cut off your legs, you really can't stand up anymore." Princess Qing cried sadly. Nangong Yitian roared, "I would rather break my legs than endure the excruciating pain." Next door, Turtle Egg was scared and cried loudly. Leng Xiao lifted the blanket, put on his shoes, and went down to the ground. He took out a pain-relieving injection needle and a strong pain-relieving transdermal patch from the medical system. He then opened the door and strode out. In the main hall of Zhan Yuju, everything was in chaos, with all the tables and chairs lying on the ground. Lord Wei and the guards held him tightly from behind Nangong Yitian. Princess Qing took away her sword and cried bitterly. Nangong Yitian's hands were bleeding, blood dripping onto his brocade clothes. His hair was disheveled, and he was wild at first. His whole body trembled, as if enduring intense pain. At the moment he saw Leng Xiao, his murderous intent surged in his eyes. Chapter 9. Painkillers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Princess Qing stood up first, her tears wiped away before she could even wipe them off. In her eyes, she resented, "What are you doing here? Get out." Leng Xiao walked up to Nangong Yitian, stood still, and looked at his blood-red eyes. "It's so noisy, don't others need to sleep?" Lord Wei still hugged him from behind Nangong Yitian and angrily said, "Princess, you're reckless. Get out quickly." Leng Xiao looked at Nangong Yitian and said, "Aren't you going to cut off your legs? I'll help you. Kill her." Nangong Yitian was furious and roared. Upon hearing this, Princess Qing immediately stabbed her sword towards Leng Xiao's chest. Leng Xiao grabbed the sword with one hand and hit her head with the hilt with the other. Princess Qing snorted and fell to the ground. "Princess, stop." Lord Wei shouted, "Stop the princess." The guard hurriedly went over to grab the sword from Leng Xiao's hand. Leng Xiao threw the sword out, and the guard hurriedly went out to pick it up, afraid that she might pick it up again later. Taking advantage of this moment, Leng Xiao activated his spiritual power to trap Nangong Yitian and Lord Wei. Then, he stepped on the bed of the noble consort and rudely tore open Nangong Yitian's clothes, revealing his sturdy skin. He quickly gave him a shot in the buttocks and then applied a strong pain-relieving transdermal patch to his leg. This action only lasted for 15 seconds. But it made Nangong Yitian feel extremely humiliated. But he was also amazed why he suddenly couldn't move, as if he had been tapped. When he was able to move again, he let out a murderous shout and said, "Cold Xiao, I killed you." Leng Xiao took 3 steps back, his long hair hanging down, covering half of his eyes, and said coldly, "You should still be grateful to me. With a pain-relieving needle and a transdermal patch, you won't feel any pain for at least 3 days. If you want it again next time, it will cost at least 1,000 taels of silver." After speaking, he turned around and left. Nangong Yitian was about to order the guards to take her down, but he felt the pain was lighter. The pain was still painful, but not so unbearable. "Prince, how do you feel? Is it better now?" Lord Wei slowly let go of him and asked. Nangong Yitian closed his eyes and felt this relaxed feeling. The pain was gradually easing. He nodded slightly and said, "It seems that things are getting better. The princess gave you a needle, but how could you choose the acupoint here?" Lord Wei said in astonishment, and then helped him pull the robe, only to find that the robe was torn. He was stunned. After a while, he said, "How does the princess know acupuncture and moxibustion? Could it be poisoning?" Nangong Yitian shook his head and said, "No, except for his legs, there is no stagnation of qi and blood in any other area, and there is no poisoning." "It's really strange," said Lord Wei, but the pain was relieved. "This kind of pain, the prince has been tormenting for several months, it's really heartbreaking." Nangong Yitian placed his hands on his knees and gently rubbed his cold side face, feeling a hint of confusion on his cage. "I have forgotten that it was this feeling when it wasn't painful," he said. Lord Wei almost shed tears. He glanced at Princess Qing on the ground and waved to the maid to come in and take her back to the room. "Perhaps I can have a good night's sleep tonight," Nangong Yitian said slowly, and the coldness in his eyes seemed to have faded a lot. "Leng Xiao can also get a good night's sleep. Over the past month, she has been able to hear the painful and oppressive sounds almost every night. Her sleep is shallow, and after hearing these sounds, she hardly needs to sleep in the second half of the night. I actually wanted to give him a painkillers for a long time, but when I remembered how bad his attitude towards the original owner was, I always refused. Tonight, I couldn't bear it anymore before I stepped forward to help. I yawned and fell asleep in a daze. Chapter 10. Haven't we got a chance yet? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Early the next morning, the maid Wenju Wenlan came in and sent out Zhu Mama and the wet nurse. She asked Leng Xiao, "Miss, it's been a month, haven't you found a chance to poison?" Leng Xiao didn't even lift his eyelids. "I haven't seen anyone, how can I get down?" Xianye said, "You can't wait any longer, you have to hurry up," Wenlan said urgently. Wenju said, "Yes, the crown prince is full moon now. You need to take your child back to your mother's house tomorrow. If you can successfully poison him tonight, the prime minister can protect you and your child when you go back tomorrow." Cold Zhao's eyes flickered slightly. "When I came back to Zhan Yuju, I told you a sentence. Forget your command and only recognize me as the master. Do you still remember?" "This is absolutely impossible," the two of them said in unison, somewhat agitated. Leng Shi looked up at them calmly and said, "Actually, poisoning is not that difficult, do you know?" The two of them looked at her, not knowing what she understood. Leng Xiao smiled and said, "Over the past month, your food has been poisoned by me. Try running your bloodline." The two were shocked and quickly lifted their qi and blood supply, and indeed found some obstruction. "Miss, what do you mean by this?" Wenju said angrily. Leng Xiao said calmly, "Let me say it for the last time, forget your orders, forget about Lao Shitzi Xianye, and only listen to my commands." Wenlan angrily said, "Why did Miss betray Xiangyi? He is your father. There's no need to talk nonsense, whether it's life or not, 2 words or 3 words, said Leng Xiao with a cold expression in his eyes when Zhu and Wenlan exchanged a glance, and the anger in their eyes disappeared. Instead, they were replaced by panic and despair, saying, "Betraying the prime minister will only lead us to a dead end." Leng Xiao said indifferently, "If you follow me, then from now on, only I can chop off your heads, and no one else can. Think carefully, there is still an hour before the poison spreads." She took a cup of tea and took a slow sip, looking indifferent. The room was silent, with only the sound of breathing getting louder and louder. In the end, the two compromised and bowed down. "Please give the queen the antidote." Leng Xiao took out 2 pills from his sleeve pocket and placed them on the table. "This is a month's antidote, it can only contain toxicity for a month." The two of them were dejected and even pretended to agree, so they took the antidote first. It seems that this idea is not feasible. The two of them took the antidote with a pale face, and Leng Xiao said, "From now on, you can do some sweeping work in the yard. Everything in the house will be taken care of by Zhu Mama and Su Ninyang. Without instructions, you cannot enter the house." "Yes." The two of them responded and retreated. "Today is the day when I want to take my child back to my mother's house in Japan, but Leng Xiao has no plans to go back." Perhaps the Prime Minister's mansion had not seen anyone return by noon, so they sent a carriage to pick up their mother and son. Zhu Mama advised, "Miss, etiquette cannot be abolished. My mother's family must always give gifts to the Crown Prince. This is a blessing to the Crown Prince." After some consideration, Leng Xiao said, "Since the customs are like this, let's go back." "I'll go tell Lord Wei," said Grandma Zhu happily. Wen Zhu and Wenlan originally wanted to follow, but Leng Xiao didn't allow them to clean the yard. Lord Wei prepared some gifts and placed them on the carriage to let their mother and son go back in glory. "Going out with my child, I always procrastinate. When I returned to the Prime Minister's mansion, it was already evening. The door was covered with a red carpet, showing his importance. The butler of the Prime Minister's mansion, Uncle Wan, came out with his servants to greet him, smiling. "Miss and the Crown Prince have come back, and the master is in a hurry," he said. At least 20 or 30 people were welcomed at the door, which looked very grand, but upon closer inspection, it was clear that among so many people, there was not a master in the mansion.